All right, so chapter 6. There's 4, just like chapter 5, there's only 4 sections that we're going to talk about. Like in chapter 6, there's only 4, which is the switch statement, the conditional operator, the do statement, and the for statement. Okay, we've already run over all of this, so it should kind of be like review, but I'm just going to read all the slides and do a few examples, and we should be able to finish chapter 6 within a week. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The switch statement provides another way to decide which statement to execute next. The switch statement evaluates an expression, then attempts to match the result to one of several possible cases. Each case contains a value and a list of statements. The flow of control transfers to the statement associated with the first case value that matches. So here is the syntax for the switch statement. So you use switch, and then you have the expression that you're going to evaluate, and then you have the different values that it must equal. So one thing you need to know is that the switch statement only checks for equality. There's no less than or greater than. It's going to say, is this, what's in here, is it equal to value 1? Is it equal to value 2? Is it equal to value 3? It's going to look at each one of those cases. There's no less than or greater than. Often a break statement is used as the last statement in which in each case's statement list. A break statement causes the control to transfer to the end of the switch statement. If a break statement is not used, the flow of control will continue into the next case. Sometimes this may be appropriate, but often we want to execute only the statement associated with one case. So let me go ahead and demonstrate what they're talking about really quick. All right, we'll go ahead and make a new program. Oops, I already had one open. I'm going to save it in 5 and 6. I'm going to call this one switch demo 1. Or actually, to get switch demo 2, I already have a switch demo. All right, public class, the name of the class, and then public static void main string array arguments. All right, so I'm just going to demonstrate the syntax of the switch. So I'm going to start off with an integer and just say like num is equal to 12. Okay, I'm over here. I want to make a switch. It's going to evaluate that integer. Okay, then I'm going to make case statements here. Okay, so case would say 12. Okay, say the number is 12, and then I'm going to break, and then I'll continue this for a bunch of other things like 11, 10, 9, and 8. I'll save that, and then you can add a default, meaning if nothing else above was true, the default would be the last thing that you would do, and we'll just say something like system.out.println, and we'll just say, I guess the number is not 8 through 12. All right, go ahead and save this. Compile. You can't see the compile. Go ahead and run. Okay, the number is 12. If I change this to a 10, did I put a 10 in here? 10, 9, 8, okay. Compile, run. The number is 12. What the heck? Did I not change it? Good. Control S. Save. Dang it. I have no idea. Oh, I'm putting the same comment. Dang it. All right. So 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. All right, there you go. That's what the problem was.
Do you have a break on your default?
So you don't need a break on the default, because so what the break actually does is it ends the switch. So when it comes across the break, it's just going to leave the switch. So that's that's actually what I'm going to demonstrate right now. All right, so you can see it's 10. Okay, so if you don't have a break, this is what's going to happen. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove all my breaks. So the switch statement does what it calls fell through, meaning once it finds a true case, it's going to execute every statement below it, okay, for every other case underneath it. So if say my number is 10, which it currently is, it's going to evaluate num to 12. It's going to say, okay, it's not 12. It's going to evaluate num to 11. It's not 11. It's going to evaluate num to 10. It's going to say, oh, I found it. It's going to print out the number is 10. Since there's no break, it's going to print out number is 9, num is 8, and the num is not 8 through 12. It's going to print out all of those, right? So when I compile and I run, and if you look at the results of me running, that's exactly what it did. Okay, so that's why it's important to put a break statement, because perhaps this is not the desired behavior. Okay, if I were to run this program again and I'll put a 12, it's actually going to print all the statements out because 12 was at the very top. Right, it just went ahead and printed them all out. All right, so that's the importance of adding a break. Now, however, this behavior might be desirable for certain cases. Okay, so I've never used a switch without putting a break, but in your book, in Chapter 6 homework, one of the problems actually tells you to print out the verses for the 12 days of Christmas. So if you're on the 12th day, right, you repeat everything below it, right? So it wants you to use a switch statement. So you can use a switch and examine what day it is, right? If it's the 5th day of Christmas, you match the 5, and you're going to say whatever it is for the 5th day of Christmas, and then whatever it is for the 4th, the 3rd, the 2nd, and the 1st, right? Because so that actually comes in handy if you look at it that way. So there's actually some use out of that. But most of the times that I've used it, aside from printing out the 12 days of Christmas, I always put a break. I think most other students do the same thing. All right, any questions on that? All right, so that is the switch. Let me hop back over here. Often a break statement is used as the last statement in each case's statement list. A break statement causes control to transfer to the end of the switch statement. If a break statement is not used, the flow of control will continue to the next case. Sometimes this may be appropriate, but often we want to execute only the statement associated with the one case. They give you an example of them incrementing based off of whatever option is. A switch statement can have an optional default case. The default case has no associated value and simply uses the reserved word default. If the default case is present, control will transfer to it if no other case values match. If there is no default case and no other value matches, control falls through the statement after the switch. So what they mean is, if we don't have a default case, I just get rid of this, delete it, and I enter in a value for number that doesn't have anything below, like just say a 13, then nothing's going to happen, right? It's going to look at everything and just not do anything. Okay, so I ran my program, I compiled and I ran, but like there is no output. Maybe I should just slap a statement at the end of this program to say the program is over. I compile, run, and I made it to the end because we had no default case and the number we entered was 13, so it didn't match anything inside of the switch. All right, that is the default. The type of a switch expression can be integers, characters, enumerated types, and strings. It cannot be used on floating point values, so you can't evaluate a floating point value. The implicit Boolean condition in the switch statement is equality. So this means that there's no way to check for greater than or less than. Like every case is, does it equal this? Does it equal this? Does it equal this? Right? There's no less than or greater than. You cannot perform relational checks with the switch statement, and then they tell you to see grade report. I'm not going to go over that, but I've already done several examples on the switch statement. But let's look at what they did. So it looks like depending on what grade they got, they divided it by 10. So they're going to get a factor of 10. And then if it is a 10, meaning they got a 100, they say perfect. If they divided by 10 and they got 9, that means they got a 90 or better, between 90 and 100, then you're going to print out well above average, excellent. Here they got an 80, right, nice job, 70, then 60, and then default is just not passing. All right, any questions on the switch? It's kind of, I mean, the syntax is a little funky. I prefer using the if statements in most cases, but sometimes it does come in handy if I know I'm just going to do equality checks. All right, the conditional operator, this is actually a really interesting operator. I actually use this a lot. I'm going to go ahead and explain it. I didn't go over it before, so this is something new. So the conditional operator. The conditional operator evaluates to one of two expressions based on the Boolean condition. The syntax is your condition, then expression 1, expression 2. If the condition is true, expression 1 is evaluated. If it's false, expression 2 is evaluated. The value of the entire condition is the value of the selected expression. The conditional operator is similar to an if-else statement, except that the expression returns a value. For example, here's them using the conditional operator. So they're saying larger is equal to, if num1 is greater than num2, then larger is going to equal num1. If num1 is not greater than num2, then larger is going to equal 2. Okay, and they just explained it down here, exactly what I just said. The conditional operator is ternary because it requires 3 operands. Here they give you another example of them pluraling dime and making it dime or dimes depending on their count. And yeah, let me demo that. This is actually really useful in my opinion. Okay, so let me just come over here and I'm gonna make a new program. I'm gonna save it as the ternary operator demo. All right, and I'm going to prompt the user for data. So I'm going to say import java.util.scanner. I'm going to say public class and the name of my class, and then public static void main string array arguments. All right, so I need a scanner object. Right, I'm going to have an int for number, which I'm going to get from the user, and I'm going to initialize it to 0. I'm going to say while number does not equal -1. And then I'm going to prompt the user. I'll say like enter the number of grades. Okay, they're gonna give me a number, and I'll say num is equal to scan.nextInt, and I'll say if num does not equal -1, that means they don't want to exit. I'll just say system.out.print line. You chose to enter num grades. All right. And the else case would be them wanting to leave, and I'll just say goodbye or something like that. All right, I think everything looks correct. Let's see if it compiles. It does compile, that's awesome. All right, and let me go ahead and run. So enter the number of grades. I'm gonna enter -1 just to make sure I can exit. I can, perfect. I'm gonna run this again. Enter number of grades, I'm gonna enter 2. It says you chose to enter 2 grades, enter number of grades. I'll just choose 1. You chose to enter 1 grades, right? So grammatically, having grades plural doesn't really make much sense, right? Whenever it's singular. So what we can do is we can set up a ternary operator to get the count of, or to determine if we need to say grades or grade, all dependent on the number that was entered, right? So to enter 1, we want to say grade. If we enter a number greater than 1, we're going to just say grades. All right, so you can just put it like right there if you wanted to, but let's just do this. I'm going to make a new string, and then I'll call this one, I have no idea what to call this. What should I call this one? Grade string, I guess. I have no idea. I think it's just easier just to use the ternary operator like in place. But to make it a little bit easier to see, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right here and say, okay, well, if the number is equal to 1, then I want the string to be grade. If not, if it's not equal to 1, then I want the string to be grades, which is plural. Okay? So there's going to be some value stored inside of that string, and then I'm going to use that value to concatenate it right there. And I'm just going to say, well, I guess I could put a space right here and a period right there, just to make this a little easier. All right, and at the very end of number, I'm going to just say grade string. Okay, so now when I compile and run, right, if I enter multiple grades like 5, it uses grades with an S. If I enter just a 1, it just says grade with no S, right? So it's like having an if-else statement like built into this one line. This is the condition. If the condition is true, you're going to give back this string. If it's not true, you're going to give back this string. Okay?
I have a question. I probably went over this. What was that question mark?
It's just part of the syntax,
Okay.
right? It's just a way of separating the 3 parts. There's 3 parts here. There is the condition. Let me just label it above. Here is the condition. Here is the true expression. I'll just say like result. I don't know. And then here is the false. Okay, so if this condition is evaluated, if this condition is true, then you're going to give back this portion. If it's false, you're going to give back this string right here. All right, there's the question mark and the semicolon or the colon is just the syntax of this operator. Okay, it's just done in line. It's just like having an if-else statement done in line. This could have been like rewritten with if and else statements. If I would have done something like this, if I would have just like defaulted that to nothing, right? Coming off this, put a semicolon right there, and just made an if-else statement like if this, then do something else, do this, and my if condition would have been okay. Well, if num1 is equal to 1, then I want my grade string to equal grade. Okay? If it's not 1, then I want my grade string to equal grades. It does the same thing, except I was able to put all that in one line, which makes it a little easier to write out. Right, it's just like a little shortcut that's available. Now you can do this for anything that is going to return some type of data, meaning like you want a value to change. Like you cannot put system out print lines like inside of this thing right here, right? Or an if else you can. So you can't use it to like print stuff out, but you can use it to save off data into some variable. Okay, let me just revert what I just did. Let me do another example, but this time I'm going to use integers or something like that. All right, that will actually Control Y. Yeah, all right, I'll save that. Okay, let me come over here, make a new one, and I'll save this one as all right, this will be Ternary Operator demo number 2, and let me save it as Java. All right, so public, wait, why am I putting dots? Public class all right. Okay, let me think about how I'm going to do this. All right, so should I ask the user for data? I guess we could do the greater than or the less than one. I don't know. All right, we'll just do that. Dang it. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to import the scanner. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to prompt the user I'm asking for 2 numbers. So I'm going to save off num1. And then I'm going to save num2. All right. And then I'm going to need maybe another integer called like the bigger one or greater, largest. I think they use larger, right? In the book. So larger is going to equal to, I'm going to use a ternary operator. So here's the syntax for it. I'm going to have some condition. I'm going to have my question mark. I'm going to have my true right there. And then my false would be like right there, right? So you have the condition. Then you have the true. And then you have the false result. All right. I'm just kind of space this out so it's all kind of like lined up. So I have my condition, I have what is going to be true, and then what's going to be false. All right, so I'm going to come in here, I'm going to fill this in. So my condition would be, okay, whatever one's bigger. So I'll just say, okay, well, is num1 greater than num2? If it is, then I want to save num1 into the variable larger. Say num1. If it's not true, then I want to save num2. All right, let me just kind of space this out a little bit so I can put like spaces right there. I can look a little nicer. All right, so then I'm going to enter in two numbers, and it's going to figure out which one's bigger. And I'm just going to say system.out.println. The larger number is larger number is larger. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and compile. And run. Okay, enter a number. I'm going to enter in a 3, and then I'm going to enter in 7,000. I'm going to press enter. The larger number is 7,000. Okay, so I'm going to run this again. Okay, this time I'm going to put 56 as the first number and negative 900 as the second number, and I knew that 56 was the larger one. Okay, so like the if statement and everything else that we do, you can nest things. So you can actually compare, you can actually have one of these return back a ternary operator where you do an additional condition check right there, or additional condition check right there, and you can get like really crazy with it. Okay, I'm not going to ask you anything like that on your exam, but if you wanted to keep nesting these things in here, you could just make it more and more complex. Yeah. So, for instance, let's just say if I wanted to check to see if num1 was negative, positive, or 0. Okay? Negative, positive, or 0. And I just wanted to say system that out. I just want to do it all right here. Okay? I could do something like this. I can say num1 is, and then like right here inside of parentheses, I'm going to do my ternary operator. And so I'm going to do my condition, my true case, and then my false case. So the first thing to do is check to see if num1 is equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, then I'm going to say num1 is, and then I'll just say 0. Okay? If it's not 0, then am I going to say positive, negative, right? For now, I'm just going to put positive / negative, and we'll come back and add the second check. Okay, I'm going to save that, compile, and run. Okay, so num1, I'm going to put a 0. Num2, we'll put a 9. Here it says the larger number is 9, num1 is 0. Okay, I'm going to run it again. This time I'm going to say num1 is a 4. Num2 is an 8. Right, num1 is positive or negative. Run it again. I'll put num1 as a negative number and num2 as 9. Press enter, num1 is positive or negative, right? So right now the only thing I'm getting out of that statement that I just did is whether num1 is 0 or if it's a positive or negative. If I wanted to come in like right here, I'm going to move this to a different line because I'm running out of space. If I wanted to come in right here and say, you know what, I want further checks done here, I'm going to just cut that out. I'm going to put in another ternary operator inside of there. So I have my condition, I have my question mark, and I have my true and my false case. So now I'm going to check to see, okay, well, is num1 less than 0? If it is less than 0, then I'll come over here and say, okay, well, it is negative. Okay, if it's not negative, that means there's only one thing left. That is positive. So I checked 0, negative, and positive. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. Hop back over here, compile, run. Okay, so I'm going to put in a 0, and then I'm going to put a number for num2. Num1 is 0. Run it again. This time I'll put in a negative value for num1 and a value for num2. It knows that num1 is negative. I'll run it again. Oops, too much zooming. Dang it, what the heck. I tried to unzoom, it didn't work. All right, I'm putting in a positive number and then a number for num2. It knows that num1 is positive, right? So I did it all just like in one line, really, by just doing that. All right. I know it looks a little confusing, but it's like a ternary operator with a ternary operator nested inside of it. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you anything like that on your exam, but you could keep going with this. Like if there was like some fourth condition that you wanted to check for, then you can just make one of them return a ternary operator where you do an additional check. Right? It's like you're driving down inside of that check, the same way you nest things inside of an if and an else. All right, any questions on that? So I know like doing this part might be a little confusing, but you will have to know how to do just at least one, right, without it being nested. So you can only use this if you're going to have like some value that is going to be returned. If you're going to do statements that are void, like system out print line, right, it just will not work. It's just saving off a value for a string or concatenating, like everything that's highlighted right now, right? Java knows that a string is going to come out of that. Right? If I were to come over here and put like a number in one of them, while the other one is a string, actually, I think it'll be okay with that because I'm concatenating to a string. But if I were to change it up here, or just an integer, and I made this one a string, right? Now I try to compile. Java is upset at me. I don't know if you saw that, but it knows that the types are incompatible. All right. Any questions on that? So I do like, even though I'm not going to give you guys questions on nesting, I do, this is my favorite thing to use, and I do slap it all over your final exam. Okay? So you're going to have to know how this works. Okay? So just one more time, you check a condition. If the condition is true, the value after the question mark is what gets returned, right? Or gets assigned to larger. If it's false, then the value after the colon is what gets assigned to larger. All right, and let's hop back over to this example over here where we used it for strings. Okay, we check this condition. If this condition is true, then we use this string, right? If this condition is false right here, then we use this string right there. All right, questions? No? All right, so I guess I could continue. I'm moving a lot quicker than I thought I would. I'm going to just stop there. Normally I would give you guys a quiz over that because that's my favorite thing to use. But I know like the weather right now is actually not that favorable. So I'm going to go ahead and end class. If you do have questions, I'll stick around, answer your questions. But if not, you're free to go.